Hello and welcome to the Head of the Game podcast. I'm your host, James Oxford, and today I've got Alex West and Chris Byler with me to discuss which NBA team we think could best fit each of the prospects we are looking at come this year's draft. Is this conversation early? Probably, but that's why we are ahead of the game here. Let's go ahead and move on to VJ Edgecombe. Chris, I know you've been super high on Edgecombe as a prospect. I was watching even more film yesterday, and I was like, okay, you know what? I see where Chris is coming from here. So let's go ahead and tell everybody why they need to not blaspheme his name, and then Alex can come and blaspheme his name.
I drafted a little note for myself. Say something negative to start. Because just to keep this honest. So the main negative thing I can come up with is that he's more than a year older than Flag and Bailey. That's my main that's my main concern. No. Okay, I'll be real. Um, I say that first because I think it's important for me to say something negative because by the end of this season, you guys are gonna hate him and you're gonna hate me because I'm gonna never shut up about this guy. I'm so excited. I'm blown away every time I watch him. I sat down to watch some Donnie Freeman tape the other day, and I wasn't paying attention in the game. The first game that came up was Lehigh, where Edgecombe was playing. And by the end of the first quarter, I'm not even watching Edgecombe. By the end of the first quarter, I'm walking around my office with my head on my hands and all the freaky stuff he's doing, and he doesn't even have the ball. So I just think I'm blown away every time. He isn't a perfect prospect by any means. He's got actual criticisms that I would bring up. I mean, he's right now he's a standstill 3-point shooter. While the numbers are good, he's open virtually every time. They don't want him to drive past. They don't want Edgecombe driving past him. But I think the shot comes along. There's no movement shooting indicators at all right this second. So I think you're drafting him knowing that he's never going to be or he's probably not going to be a really great shooter ever. But he had good numbers in high school. He gets up high on the shots when, he gets into the mid range. He's such an athlete. I mean, I don't think his mid range jump shots ever getting blocked. He in the Bahamas games was creating space against bigger, more veteran guys really easily. But the main criticisms are the jump shot, just because we gotta see it at a higher level against more consistent defenses locked in. And I think the on-ball creation is another issue because he needs to tighten up that handle. He needs to get more comfortable with it. I think it's improving, but he needs to get more comfortable. So right now you've got a hyper athletic, kind of 6'4" ish wing. I think he plays bigger than that because I think he's long and he's strong and just the athleticism is so unreal that he guards bigger guys. I mean, I watched him guard Cooper Flag in one of the games they played. So um, I think he's a defensive freak who is always doing good. He's just making winning plays all over the court, even when he doesn't have the ball. I mean, in the games where he played against Harper, I think he played Harper like 4 or 5 times this last year. Harper can't do anything in these games. Like he has no chance against Edgecombe. Edgecombe makes them all look silly. And I just that kind of played out in the Bahamas games where he's playing with 3 other NBA guys. I mean, Buddy Hield and Ayton and Eric Gordon were on that team. And by the end of the last couple of games, they were given 18-year-old VJ Edgecombe the ball to try to run offense, even though that's his biggest weakness. I mean, he just was so unstoppable in some of those games. I think a lot of these guys I'd like to see them sit on the bench or learn behind pros for the first year. But I think Edgecombe's ready to walk in and contribute right now. And I'm over the moon. I can't help myself. I'm so excited because he just does all the little things that I like. Even if the shot isn't ever awesome or he doesn't come around as a high level, like a consistent guy running offense, I think he does enough other stuff to be a good player. So if that stuff hits, then you got a real monster. But I'm just excited about it.
The defense and the physicality and his ability to impact a game as an athlete is incredible. Like there's no question about that. Like he is his strength and he's just very powerful. Like despite being in a smaller package, like you said, he plays bigger. And he's disruptive and he's a good rebounder and he's a shot blocker for his position. I mean, there's all this kind of stuff that is really exciting. I focus more on the Bahamas film because like that was really to me more like what does he do when he plays with other guys who are real, and like high school film kind of is what it is. In the Bahamas film there was something that like kept sticking out to me that I didn't like, and it's a very fixable thing, but I felt like he was playing flat-footed on offense too often. And that is really the big thing that I want to see coming out of him in the next couple of months is what happens, because it felt like as he progressed through it, he got a little bit better about this. But early on, he was the young guy. He was playing with Buddy Hield ran a lot of their offense, and he's playing with Hield and Gordon, and so he was kind of that like swing on the reverse side guy. Well, when that happened, there are a lot of times if you go and watch the film where he catches it flat footed and he shoots, and he catches it flat footed and he shoots, where a guy with this kind of functional athleticism, the way he's going to apply pressure to teams is that slashing kind of second side. I'm going to get at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to cut to the elbow extended. I'm going to make you warp your defense. And I just didn't see enough of that. And I hope that's a comfortability thing. Like, again, young guy coming in playing for his national team, a good national team too. I mean, a team that had a lot of talent. And I think as he progresses, that really is a big question. Is like, can you leverage all the things that you leverage defensively? Can you leverage those offensively to be a player that can impact a game as this smooth, strong, explosive athlete that you are? And that's I think the big thing. And then the other thing is, I didn't love the shot selection. I think he gets a little shot happy sometimes. I think he predetermines when he's going to shoot. Like, kind of like after that first move, he's already, I'm going to go into my shot. I'd like to see a little bit more flexibility when he decides, he's jammed up. But that's one of those things that we have, talked about through this whole podcast is guys who are that big, guys who are that strong at a high school level, you just go through it. You decide you're going to shoot and you just shoot because you're so good, you rise above everything else. But to me, that's the big thing is like, I want to see him leverage all of these gifts that he has on the offensive end and be just a menace to society. Cut at that corner angle, start applying that rim pressure, being able to jump and be as strong as he is. He doesn't get bumped off his spot. When he's in the air, he's incredible. It's like, he can't get bumped off where he wants to be. He gets where he wants to be. And so I just want to see a little bit more of that. I don't think that was a takedown either, James. I like Edgecombe a lot. I just don't like him as much as Chris does because nobody does. I don't think his mom likes him as much as Chris does.
His mom's got nothing on me for sure.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what y'all said. I have a little more confidence, I think, in his on-ball maybe potential than maybe y'all do. The team I came up with for his best fit was the Wizards. Y'all looked at, hey, they need Ace Bailey for their offense. I said, I'd rather give him Edgecombe. I think that Edgecombe for them would be just like the exact offensive spark they need. He's just going to get in there and run and run and run. And Sarr is capable of running. Like they got guys that can run on their team. Koulibaly can run. Carrington, he can get up tempo, although I don't know how, their fit may not be as ideal as maybe the fit between Edgecombe and Sarr and Koulibaly. But that's where my head was at. Just they can get something really, really fun, up tempo where he can have the ball in his hands, because I do think he's going to be a guy that needs the ball in his hands to really maximize his impact. Now, maybe he doesn't pan out that way and he doesn't end up being successful in that. But if we're talking about giving him a chance to do that, I mean, you could argue the Nets because they're the blank canvas, right? But the Wizards, I think, already have some fun pieces in place that could be nice alongside of him and not put him on pretty much where if he's successful early on the Nets, I think it's almost like, man, he's going to see double teams every night. And while the Wizards don't have a ton of offensive talent, at least they have something there where I think there's other outlet valves for him.
I don't think it would shock me if Edgecombe became the star out of this class. Like I just see there are so many pieces that can be put together. And I think that kind of goes like there are two different teams that I look at, the Nets being one of them. The Nets is like, well, you know what? If we end up with the fifth pick or we end up with a fourth pick and we don't get a shot at Cooper Flagg, who are we going to take who might be a franchise player? And I think, that is very, very in the wheelhouse for VJ Edgecombe. You could see him being a guy. I mean, this name gets thrown around a lot, but he does remind you of Dwayne Wade a little bit. Like there's a little bit of Dwayne Wade in there. And I know that's we don't want to make this player comps or whatever, but 5 years down the line, if VJ Edgecombe was a guy you're like, man, how did he end up fourth? Like I could see that happening. So the Nets, I think, are a good pick. And then also if you really want to get into it, I think if this team ended up here, he could be fun with the Hornets because now he can play with these high level creators. You got Miller, you got Lonzo, and then you slot VJ Edgecombe in there and just let him do all the awesome things he does and let him play a little more off the ball and develop as a second side guy and attack the creases in the defense. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I think if you project him as that second side guy, that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't mean to cut you off there, Chris. My bad. Just want to throw that in. That if you project him as that, that makes a lot of sense as a destination.
Yeah, I had the Hornets as my second pick. I like that a lot as just someone who can. I mean, I just think he and Brandon Miller are a terrifying duo to deal with. So I like that a lot. The team that I went with was the Jazz, and I think for a lot of the similar reasons, I do think he's going to walk in and be a contributor right now. And I think Larry Markkinen would love to hear that. They have the primary scorer already in Markkinen, and then the rest of the team. I mean, Kessler is on the team for now. I like Kessler. He's like the really good defensive center, the rim protector that they already have. I know that he's been in trade talks, but the rest of the team is young, athletic, hyper athletic guys. I mean, they have Sexton and Clarkson that'll be still on the team for Edgecombe's rookie year, but after that, they're expiring, and there's all the opportunity in the world. And I'm not convinced he wouldn't just take one of their spots on day one. So then you've got Hendricks, Cody Williams, Filipowski, Collier. These are young, athletic, potential-filled guys. And if a couple of them work out around Edgecombe, I mean, you've got some serious athleticism kind of in the similar mold. I liked Cody Williams in the draft. I liked Taylor Hendricks in the draft. What a nightmare to have these guys buzzing around all the time around an already established, really high-level scorer like Markkinen. I think you might be on the if that works out a little bit. I think you're on the way to having a fantastic scorer surrounded by quite a defensive core, quite a nice defensive core, all under a really good coach, who's I think been a good development guy over the last year. So I'm excited for that to be the fit. I agree with you, Alex, that in a couple of years he might be the guy that we're all looking around going, how did he go for? I don't know how confident I am in the on-ball stuff, but I think there's at least a solid chance that he's good at that. And so I'm just pumped to watch him this year.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely more confident in the on-ball stuff. I think the names I threw at you is like super high ceiling guys. Chris originally was like, I don't know if I was concerned, is he more Ant or Westbrook? I think is the names I threw at you. And when I say concerned, it's not like either one would be a bad outcome. Obviously, you obviously pick either one with the number one pick, and almost any draft if you're guaranteed that. But Westbrook, I think, is if the shooting never becomes something he can really hit off the dribble, coming off pick and rolls, which is the concern, right? Does he absolutely need the ball and is able to have a weakness that the defense can exploit, kind of to where Westbrook was exploited at some certain parts of his career, I'll say. But yeah, I am super high on Edgecombe as well. I just think that there's a lot of ways he can succeed and not a lot of ways where he just becomes not a usable player.
Yeah, agreed. And I think for the record, it's very important that I point this out now. I am the guy who's gushing about Edgecombe like crazy, but Russell Westbrook, Dwayne Wade, and Anthony Edwards were all comps made on this podcast, not by me. So I just want to point that out now.
That's facts. That's facts.
He's a fun guy.
That's facts. He's saving his Michael Jordan comp for next pod.
I don't feel bad about the Dwayne Wade comp either. Like, I mean, I don't want to say like he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but like that's kind of what Dwayne Wade was coming out of Marquette. So,
but we're not talking about 50% outcomes here either. We're talking like ceiling 85th, 90th percentile outcomes. If we're talking 50th percentile outcomes, I think there's All-Star probably is 60th percentile. I don't think it's that far above his average outcome where he is an All-Star.
Yeah.
And I do think that's important when we're talking about outcomes, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this draft, where he goes is going to be more a function of how Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper and Traore do this year than VJ Edgecombe, because I feel a little more confident in like where Edgecombe is as a player. Like if by the end of the year Edgecombe has developed a little bit more from the jump shot and some of the off ball stuff that Alex was describing, the cutting, and is a little more advanced with his like primary playmaking. If he's contesting for the first pick with Cooper Flag, I'm not going to be shocked. And if he goes to then when he's getting a little bit of first pick buzz, this is not going to be the surprise face. I mean, like I'm going to be right there, but I think the floor on him is still pretty high, and that's what makes me a little happier with him as a prospect. So does Ace is he better than Ace Bailey right now? Would I have him above Ace Bailey? I don't know. Ace is like incredible. Or Traore and Harper, I don't love the ceiling quite as much as this. And so I think I comfortably would have Edgecombe at 3 right this moment. But just of those 5 guys. But like those guys, if Harper has a monster season, I'm not gonna that probably is more indicative of where Edgecombe goes in this draft than Edgecombe, just at this point.
I think the thing about Edgecombe that is interesting or whatever is I think it's not like the floor I think is higher. Like that's really the big deal of like no matter what projected outcome, like 60th percentile or 85th percentile, like that's still a really good player. And I think with Ace Bailey, the shot IQ, the stuff where he could fall into some really bad habits, like that scares me a little more. Whereas I know what the floor, it kind of different, totally different dude, totally different way. But like this is kind of how I felt about Castle last year. Is like there's a floor here that's pretty damn functional. And like so that's really what I see for Edgecombe. And like you said, like if he went 2, would not shock me at all. And if he went 5 and people were like, what just happened? How did this guy go 5? Also wouldn't shock me.